was like right next to the door while gunshots were shooting through the door, and then he just busted in.
The idea from the beginning was to go directly at the NRA, something that had never been done before. The format of the film is basically going to be 5 stories. Each one will be deeply personal.
Each one take a different look at a different way that gun violence happens in the U.S. So there's a domestic violence story, a story about trafficking specifically in Chicago. In the U.S. So there's a domestic violence story, a story about trafficking specifically in Chicago, an unintentional shooting involving a young boy, a mass shooting, and for that we're looking at the Aurora movie theater shooting that happened in 2012. We're also looking at a story about a suicide that involved a gun.
I help finding information and finding names and finding these the different people that are affected by gun violence and get in contact with them and see if they will be a part of it.
And then on the other side, we show how the gun companies and the NRA try to take advantage of these tragedies to sell more guns.
There is no greater freedom, believe me, than the right to survive. With all the rifles, shotguns, and handguns that we want.
So when you first start approaching people and trying to find, the people who are going to tell these stories, it's a really difficult thing to do, at least for me, just because it's really hard to ask someone to talk about something so painful.
There was another home invasion in Houston today, but the family fought back. The homeowner's son shot and killed one of the intruders. Tim Wetzel spoke with the family about this terrifying experience.
It was a terrifying attack. This family inside their home when 3 men tried to barge through the front door, but they weren't afraid to fight back.
Somebody ring on door.
When the doorbell rang around 8:30 last night, it started a night of fear for this family from Eastern Europe. They're still too shaken up to show their faces on camera.
I see a young boy, and I think maybe somebody, a friend of my son. So I open it a little bit, and this guy push, and after that come 2 more, and push me on the ground.
With the father on the ground, the armed men then went after the mother.
He said, I will not hurt you, just lay down, lay down. They put my husband on the floor, and I just ran into my bedroom, and my son, he was in bedroom, already pulled the gun from under the bed.
And that's when the 21-year-old pulled the trigger.
And I just hear a couple times, bam, bam, bam.
The suspect died right on the floor. The 2 others took off running. Deputies caught up with 2 men that matched their descriptions. They've both been taken into custody.
I'd have done the same thing.
Neighbors say they don't blame this son one bit.
People just can't go breaking into people's homes and not expect some kind of consequence.
But members of the family are still very shaken up. They had to take a life to save themselves.
I say 1 young life is lost.
The victims say they still have no idea why their home was targeted or what these guys were even after. The whole attack was so quick, lasted less than a minute. In Northwest Harris County, Tim Wetzel, KHOU 11.
Homicide detectives have swooped on a street in Sydney's west after a man was murdered in a suspected home invasion. 9 News reporter Chris O'Keefe is at Badgerys Creek and joins us now. Chris, good morning. What more can you tell us?
Good morning, Georgie. It's horrible news out of Sydney's west this morning. It's believed a man in his 60s has been found deceased inside his home here at Badgerys Creek after what is believed to be a home invasion early this morning. Now, what has happened is that the man's wife has called police at about 4 o'clock. She told them that 3 men has stormed her home with baseball bats, smashing their way through the windows and attacking both the man and the female. Now, when police did arrive, they found the man. All we know at this stage is that he is aged in his 60s. They found him dead with significant head injuries in one of the bedrooms. Now, she, also his wife, had a broken arm and also had significant head injuries. She's been rushed to Liverpool Hospital where she is in intensive care now at the moment. The entire street here in Badgerys Creek has been blocked off. There's crime scene tape all around the house. We have forensic police and homicide detectives frantically scouring the place, trying to figure out the exact circumstances around this tragic death. Georgie?
All right, Chris, we'll keep across it. Thank you very much.
A man legally buys a gun at a pawn shop in Oklahoma City Monday morning. Moments later, he used that very same gun to kill himself.
I want people to understand that there is something that normal, everyday, average Americans can do to try and stop this.
We have 3 full-time editors that are working right now who are all working on various parts of the film. One of the major challenges that we have is trying to figure out how do we insert all of the facts? How do we put in all the policy in these really emotional stories? So the style that we decided to implement was to put the graphics in the world of the environment of our characters. So you might have somebody walking and a fact will come up as they're walking in that world.
Our distribution of our film is extremely grassroots, and we are working with as many groups and individuals as possible to get people thinking more about gun violence, and especially about what they can do to make a change and difference around it in this country.
We want students and families to be debating all the different facets of gun violence and the policies related to it. So that's why we're bringing it into schools, having debates, local communities, libraries, churches, just so people can start talking about gun violence.
Stop selling guns that kill our kids!
We need to challenge any politician to ask them to stand up to a gun lobbyist with a checkbook.